The Bison are halfway through the season and still rolling along.
Into the open field. Hokie working up a run to block. It is into the end zone. Touchdown.
Beating their third top 10 team in a row. Trey Lance and the Bison offense dominating an otherwise good Northern Iowa defense.
Lance setting up downfield. Yendorf is all alone. Touchdown.
NDSU looks to keep their winning streak going against a Missouri State Bears team struggling to find a positive. Valley Play rolls on now on the KBLY KFAR Bison Football Network.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Hello and welcome to the Fargo Dome, the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. Alex Egan, Beth Hool, Kyle Emanuel here for the next 60 minutes as we get you set for North Dakota State and Missouri State. It was the great singer-songwriter John Francis Bon Jovi who once said, "Oh, we're halfway there." I didn't tell him I was going to say that, but we are halfway there. We're 6 games into a 12-game season. I know. That's why I didn't say it. And it's a Code Green Day as I have dressed up for the part.
I thought St. Patrick's Day was in March.
The Bison, well, you tell the Bison that, as they're rocking the all-green uniforms, and they look
the difference
so
is
sweet.
The Bison look incredibly sharp.
What are you talking about?
I'm just kidding.
What are you talking about?
You look great, but the Bison do look great. You guys
look
know,
at that.
Week in and week out, I talk down about the whole uniform, helmet, hoopla that you guys tend to get incredibly excited about. I will admit, this looks real sharp.
Thank you. Yeah, fashion is something that I don't think Alex and I are going to talk about a lot, but when it comes to football, and it's not just NDSU, it's around, I mean, I think Oregon started it.
Yes.
But yeah, it helps with recruiting. You have to stare at them. You have to stare at these uniforms for 3 hours during the game. They might as well look sharp, right?
And they do. This looks really good.
Let's be honest, this is something to get excited for because the team that's lining up against them hasn't had the greatest year so far, but the Bison, 6 games in, they have looked every bit the part of the defending national champions.
It's so incredible to see this team, so many young guys, new coaching staff here in town, and to see what the Bison have been able to do and how hot they have started off this season. My expectations just continue to grow every single week.
Yeah, I don't know if I can give them a grade, but an A+++. I mean, UC Davis is the only game you can even look at and say there was a little bit of a hiccup, and that was a good team, and I think they just kind of caught NDSU on a weird day. They caught UC Davis was playing really well that day, but other than that, I mean, you beat Northern Iowa, you beat Illinois State easily in a commanding fashion. I don't know what more you can say about this team. It's a complete team. There's not a lot of flaws anywhere. The offense is good all over. The defense is good all over. They've been impressive to say the least.
Absolutely. Let's go down field side for 3 other members of our crew: Brian Shawn, Lee Timmerman, and Ryan Gellner. Hi, guys.
Hey, Alex, I think we also are equally as impressed with North Dakota State so far this year. For me, as young and as talented as we knew they were going to be, I'm just super impressed at how well this thing has got rolling and as fast as it's got rolling.
Well, when you can run the ball as well as NDSU has run the ball, it's really tough to try to defend that. The Bison offensive line, we thought when the season started, would be the strength of the team, and there's certainly no indication to disprove that notion. They have been outstanding, and I'm not surprised that they're undefeated. I'm surprised a little bit in what the final scores, especially in these first couple Valley games, how dominating that effort has been so far.
Same thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is. And, you know, North Dakota State, you knew was going to be tested right out of the gate in the Valley, going on the road at Illinois State, a team that has some high aspirations, and then Northern Iowa, a team that always plays North Dakota State tough. And to rush for 288 yards at Illinois State and hold them to just 3 points. To rush for 347 here against Northern Iowa, a team that was only giving up 100 yards a game. I think the Bison have proved that this group is for real. A couple more road tests coming here along the way. Down the road against South Dakota State and Youngstown State, those will be the next 2 big tests. This one today, I'm not sure will be as big of a test.
The offensive line, the young quarterback, the wide receivers, I mean, things just blow off the paper when you look at North Dakota State. Alex, I, though, have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
What'd you have for breakfast this morning? They're magically delicious.
Yes.
You
Lucky.
sang that on television. I just want you to know that you did that on
That was
television.
well done.
That was really
They're
well done.
magically delicious.
You got to give him credit for selling it, though. He sold it.
Should have got him a top hat.
Yes.
Get him a top hat too.
Oh, that is ugly, man.
There should
That is
be-
We
I
ugly.
look
think there
forward
should
to
be
checking
question
back in
marks
with you
on
guys
the jacket.
later.
While
I
we're
have gotten a
talking
lot of
fashion.
talks about these.
Yeah, we're talking. You wanted to. You ask every
This
week
is what
for
it
me
is.
to talk fashion.
This is I should have expected this. Hey, so Brian Sean there mentioning South Dakota State and Youngstown State coming up on the docket, and it's easy for us to say, oh, those are two very exciting games and two very tough games that NDSU is going to have both on the road. So you have to take care of business today, and there's something that the Bison had to go back and look at this week, and Matt Entz wanted the team to go back and look at this week, and it was trap games that they lost that the Bison should have won. And the first one that comes to mind is from 2015. It was in this building. It was South Dakota that came in here, and people might remember this game as we flash back to it. This was a game that Carson broke his wrist, and then South Dakota had an improbable fourth quarter comeback. They hit a field goal as time expires, and they walk out of the dome snapping a winning streak, and they walk out with a win. Yeah, that's how most of Bison Nation felt afterwards too. They were very speechless about this one. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people saw this one coming, but there was another game, Kyle, that, you have to go back another couple years that you played in, Kyle, that was a trap game. And it was a very not so great Indiana State team that came in here, and the Bison got beat that day.
Yeah, and there was kind of similar talk that week. I remember. I know this is a long time ago, but I still remember this is going to be this game will be handled. Here it is. Indiana State played well. We did not play well, but that's the thing that I'm always cautious. People come up to me this week and talk about how easy of a win this should be against Missouri State. Like, you still have to go out and play the game. They're still Division I athletes on the other side of the ball, and you can't. When you get in trouble is when you start thinking as a player, as a coaching staff, that you don't have to give full effort in a game like this, and that's when you can lose. But to me, there's a standard that's kind of held here, and I doubt that the players aren't looking to South Dakota State. They're focused on this one today.
Well, and I loved when Matt Entz told us that he was going to have the guys watching those USD highlights, those Indiana State highlights this week, because I think that's fantastic to see them put that image in front of these guys, show them what that felt like. And I guess I'm just curious, is there anything that you guys do to help encourage that passion, light that fire? Any challenges, goals that you guys talk about when you're trying to knowingly avoid a trap game?
Yeah, Beth, I don't know if there's any goal necessarily or something you do different, and that's why I think NDSU has been successful in these games, other than a couple hiccups years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years.
And I've said it a lot on this show, but you have to hold yourself to a standard, and you have to be consistent week in and week out. And that's what we see a lot from other Valley teams, FCS teams around the country, is they're not consistent. And so when you start to look ahead, I didn't even know the schedule a lot of times as a player. Yeah, who are we playing this week? And that's all I know, and that's all I need to know. So they won't be looking ahead to South Dakota State, I can promise you. They won't be looking ahead to Youngstown State. You have to focus on this one because there has been those games. And the fact that Matt Entz is pointing them out, I think is really good for this team.
Have you found that that's something unique to NDSU, or does every team try and do that? You obviously played in the NFL. You know guys who played all sorts of different places. Did you find that you were better at prioritizing and compartmentalizing those sort of games than maybe some people from other programs? Not trying to name anyone, but...
Yeah, no, I'm not going to name anyone, but I think you're right. I think everyone tries to do that and everyone talks about it, but I think we were just better at it. And even in the NFL, there was a lot of talk about schedule upcoming, what's next and this and that, and it just wasn't the case here. And I think that it goes back to the culture and a standard rather than getting high or low on emotions. You play to a standard, and you don't play up or down to a competition. You play the same way every single week, and you be consistent with it.
Yeah, certainly something that the guys have been focused on this week. We'll step aside from this discussion, and we'll head out to the tailgate lot, where it is much nicer this week than it was last week. And Mike Morgan joins us out there with our tailgate trivia. Mike?
All right, here we are out in the tailgate area. What a beautiful day it is, and what a difference a week makes. Thanks to Big Herbs, who's sponsoring our event here. He's giving away $50 gift cards. We appreciate that. I've got two contestants and a bunch of their friends. So what's the name?
Doug Hesbeck.
Doug? No one has gotten this wrong in the history of this game.
Great. Perfect.
Here we go. What is the mascot of the Missouri State football team? Is it the Bears or the Agile Wallabies?
The Bears.
The Bears! That's correct! That was really good. There you go.
Thank you.
That was easy. And now, let's see if your friend here.
Friend?
Let's see if he can do this. Your name, please?
Kurt Dubord.
Kurt, thank you so much for playing. You ready? Who is the linebackers coach for the NDSU Bison? Is it Grant Olson or Lou Grant?
Grant Olson.
Grant Olson, is he correct? Yeah! Curtis is correct, and he wins himself a $50 gift card. How easy is that? I mean it. Thank you two for playing. Thank you for showing up. And hey, let's enjoy tailgating some more, huh? Woo!
Bison and the Bears getting you set for football here on Saturday. Stay with us. We got much more to come here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. Welcome back inside the Fargo Dome, the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. North Dakota State hosting Missouri State today, and there are the Bears walking into the Fargo Dome. 1-4 this season for the Bears. It has been a rough go for them getting into this year.
Yeah, to say the least. And I think that, you know, their only win is against Western Illinois, and it was a close one.
Yeah.
And Western, as we all know, it does not have a win either. Honestly, they did take Kennesaw State to. They had a lead on them early. So, I mean, they've played some good football, but they're kind of trending down right now in the wrong direction, kind of at the wrong time.
Well, and, you know, Kyle and I were talking before the game, and Kyle pointed out you know, their athletic build. You know, they're big guys. They look like they should be able to really compete out there. And I think it's just really coming down to the lines can't hang in such a tough physical league like the Missouri Valley this year.
Yeah, I think they'll hang at least in the skill position. But as we talk about every single week, it seems like NDSU just dominates on the offensive line and the defensive line, and that's kind of where you see the discrepancy between these two teams.
Well, let's learn a little bit more about the Bears, and Ryan Gellner catching up with the voice of the Bears, Art Haynes. Ryan?
Thank you, guys. With the longtime voice of the Bears, Art Haynes, been doing this for 40 years. First of all, congratulations. That's quite a milestone.
Well, thank you. Non-consecutive. I left for 4 years early on and came back, but a total of 40.
Let's talk about this year's squad. It has been a struggle, especially on defense for the Bears.
And, you know, the defense really has been better from one down to the next than it has been in the past, but they've given up big plays. And that's been, you know, you can't take away those plays. Obviously, they're part of the game. Kennesaw State, an FCS top 10 team, runs the triple option. They really defended it well. It was one touchdown in the first half. They were ahead at the half, 16-7. First two touches of the second half, touchdowns. It went on from there. Much the same against South Dakota last week. That's a competitive game, and it all deteriorated in about a 5-minute span. A couple of turnovers had to do with that. So if they can avoid giving up big plays on defense, they really are somewhat improved than what they've been before.
Offensively, Peyton Husling has been pretty good. I think it's 10 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. He's not playing too bad.
He's been better. Last year he threw 16 interceptions. And so they really made a big emphasis on his decision-making. New quarterback coach, in fact, a lot of new coaches on the offensive side. The co-coordinators both went on to other jobs. One of them's with the Jets. So the new quarterback coach, I think, really has coached him into making good decisions with the ball. Throw it up in the stands, you know, live to fight another down rather than force something. And now he is a good mobile quarterback as far as running is concerned. And the last year and a half, the good teams like North Dakota State have really taken that away from him and made him beat you through the air. So, you know, he's making better decisions, and that's good.
Coming into this place, the Fargo Dome, against what North Dakota State is and has become, I think the attitude of the Bears is right now. Playoffs, I think mathematically probably not going to happen for the Bears. North Dakota State on the other side of things. How do the Bears respond to that?
Well, I mean, it's like playing an FBS game. There'll be as many people here today as there were at Tulane, which has turned out to be a really good team this year. That was the Bears' FBS game this year. So the thing is, and a lot of coaching staffs do this, but Steck and this staff, and by extension the players, very consistent, very businesslike. So they're treating it just like another game while knowing that the task is daunting.
Appreciate the time today. Always good to see you, and have a wonderful call today.
Thanks, Ryan. You bet.
Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Taking a look at the series history between these two, and it's been dominated by the Bison. 8 straight wins for NDSU, and the Bears only have 1 win in this building, and it was a decade ago.
There was a while there, at least I remember early on, where the Missouri State's 3-4 defense gave NDSU a little bit of a hard time running the ball, but it has not been the case as of lately. And I guess we'll see what they can do today, and if they can make it at least a ball game going into the second half.
You said you have a good memory against the Bears, right?
Yeah, I do. My senior year got my one and only interception. I think it was the last game of the regular season as well.
We didn't pull up that video.
And I got tackled. We don't need to, because you just make fun of me that I did so.
And we showed your touchdown last week against Northern Iowa.
I think that's a wonderful accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job. You have more interceptions than I do, so there you go. Well done.
And you're not wearing a green jacket.
But what he does not have is more wins than I do in our pickup from last week. Yeah, no, it's okay. It looks good though, right? All right. We did something fun last week. We did a pick'em. We were picking games in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, and Kyle went 3-2, Beth went 2-3, and then I went 4-1. Very nicely done, Alex. Thank you guys. I appreciate you saying that.
Way to go, Alex.
The only one I missed was a game that wasn't in the Valley. It was Minnesota, Nebraska. So let's get into this week's games. South Dakota State and Indiana State. This one's actually already underway, but we made these picks. We locked in these picks.
We locked these picks in Monday, and I'm going South Dakota State, and I'm looking pretty good right now, I believe.
I think you are looking pretty good.
Yeah, joined you there on the South Dakota State train, which pains me once again. But you had to go.
We're going for
record
here, Beth,
yeah. Now that I know we're keeping track.
Yeah, I also went with the Jackrabbits. Obviously, I think that's the only choice to have made there. Okay, we move on to Illinois State at Western Illinois. Western still looking for win number 1.
Yeah, I picked Western last week. I thought they were going to get their first win, but they did not. They let me down, so I'm going Illinois State this week.
Yeah, I think it's Illinois State all the way. I'm worried about Western at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if Western's got a win on the schedule at this point. Illinois State is who I'm taking as well. We move on to Youngstown at Southern Illinois.
We're going road team again. I'm going with Youngstown State.
I'm riding this Youngstown State train till the end. I think the Fighting Bo Pelini's figured out.
Yeah, still a little questionable on their quarterback situation with Youngstown State with Nathan Mays being hurt, but I still think they're better than Southern Illinois, so I've got Youngstown as well. Here's one that we might differ on. South Dakota is in the Unidome today.
Yeah, this is kind of the first one of the week that I was like, oh, you could probably go either way. I picked South Dakota. I'm not super confident in that. They are at UNI, but I did go South Dakota. They've been hot. They've been hot lately, so I'm going South Dakota.
Yeah, I'm 100% in on South Dakota on this. I have been around way too long, watched way too many times that a team has played against NDSU and then shown up next week and just doesn't have it, and I think that happens to the Panthers today.
Here's why I'm taking Northern Iowa. South Dakota went to Greeley, Colorado, my alma mater. They only put up 14 points against the Bears, and my college football team is struggling. We are about as good as these Bears that are out here tonight. So I'm taking Northern Iowa in this one. And then we also have a fun one as well. TCU hosting Chris Kleiman in Kansas State.
I think you know who I'm picking. I'm going with my old ball coach in Kansas State.
I swear I did not copy Kyle's picks. I know I lost last week.
Yes, you did.
I answered these all on my own. I'm 100% K-State.
Okay, so I just had to be a contrarian because I want to win this whole thing. So, Chris, good luck to you. I hope you pull off the win, but I'm taking TCU as a contrarian.
You just wanted to drop contrarian. Look at that, dropping it twice.
It's the jacket, right?
Look at
the jacket
vocab.
has made me smart.
I love it. I love it.
And very smart. All right, so that is our pick'em. We'll keep up on this next week and tell you who did what and how well we did. We will step aside when we come back. We will, sorry, I guess we have one more pick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, you know who I'm picking. I'm going North Dakota State. I went 45-10, and again, I'm not very confident in this. I kind of went down the middle. I think NDSU gets up early, and they might be able to let up the gas a little bit. Who knows? I think there's always a chance someone could get a garbage touchdown at the end. I don't know. Missouri State might throw up a jump ball. Maybe some weird things happen. I think they might get one score, but I think this was a toss-up. It could go anywhere with the score for NDSU.
If there was ever a game that the Bison wanted to pitch a shutout, it's the Code Green game.
That's fair. That's fair. And I hope they do. I hope they do. But you never know.
It hadn't been selected as a Code Green game.
That's true.
That's true.
When
the jersey
he was
hadn't
forced
been revealed.
To make his pick.
Yeah, I
on
locked
Monday
it
morning
in
when we
early.
made those. Yeah.
Just
okay.
the peacemaker over here.
Yeah. Now we will step aside. We come back. We'll learn a little bit more about who's playing and who is not. I don't know that guy's going to make it on the field. Yeah, so much more to come here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Am I gonna look small as I feel this? That's me. Yeah, Jimbo. Jimbo. No, that's definitely Cole. You were bad. I'm Carson. What's the dare? I feel like that's circumstantial. I'm gonna say no. I don't know.
Bachelor or otherwise.
I'll take it. Yeah, Jim. He's the only singles. We have the same ones. We just go with the team issues. We don't want to spend more money. We're boring. That's me. That's got to be cool. That's probably I just clean mine. Someone's pretty good right now. I got shoes everywhere. I have like 20 of them. Yeah. Jimbo. But his is Jimbo. Cash. Colash. It's not bad. I gotta say me just because. I mean, it's not, but he's gonna say the same thing. Well, it's obviously me, so that's right. That's tough. It's tough when I play safety and he plays D-line. Yeah, you can't compare it to. Jimmy's sarcastic. Jimmy's got the sarcastic comments. He's got the good ones. I don't have facial hair, so it's gonna have to be cool. I have patchy facial hair, but I have facial hair at least. I can't even qualify. I'm not interested. I'll take that one. Yeah, good Jim. I'll take that one. Jimmy's got the swag. He's got the tape. I got the swag. You got the tape at practice. I got the young guys teaching me. I have an Android. I'm disqualified. By Android. He's boring. I'll take that one. I'm clumsy sometimes. Cole. Cole for sure. I guess I'll take it. We ran together. Yeah. Jimbo. I'll take it. Jimmy. I'll give it.
Welcome back inside the Fargo Dome, the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. Let's get down to the field, and we catch up with Ryan Gellner and Dr. Bruce Pyatt for our Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Injury Report.
Thank you, guys. Fieldside, Dr. Bruce Pyatt joins us as he does every week. And this week we're talking about something they're talking about on the national stage, and that's the Pat Mahomes injury from just a couple of days ago, where his kneecap, Doc, came out of place, and then all of a sudden it was back in. It looked gruesome. Take us through it a little bit. What happened?
Well, first of all, it was really an unusual event to see that happen. Most of the time, that's an event that occurs in the female athletes, not so much in the male athletes, so that was unusual about it. But what happens is your kneecap really has no bony stability to it. It's a bone that sits in the quadriceps tendon, which is part of the front of your thigh, and helps you to extend the knee. And its reason for being there is to pull the quadriceps a little bit away from the knee. It gives you a little bit more mechanical advantage, a little more strength with it. And so what happens here, there's a little groove in the femur that kneecap has to glide through as you move and range your knee. And if it gets pulled one way or another, it can come out or dislocate, and that's what happened in this situation.
When it dislocated, team doctors were able to quickly put it back in. You said that's not unusual at all.
No, in fact, most of the time the athletes themselves could put it back in. It's because it's directly related to the pull of the quadricep muscle. If Pat would have just straightened his knee with the pull of his quadriceps, it would have popped itself back in. If you watch what was happening, that's all the doc was doing, was helping him to extend it and just kind of controlling the kneecap. There was no force that he gave to reduce it, so it's usually a fairly easy reduction to occur.
So once it's back in, we saw Mahomes then walk off the field. And now is it just as simple as letting that body part heal? Is that where the 3 weeks is coming from?
So there's a couple things around that. Number one, the risk of it redislocating is pretty high. The younger you are when that first occurs, the higher the risk is that it's going to dislocate again. So that's what they're going to have to kind of play into this all. The reports we're hearing is that on the MRI, he did not tear the ligament they keep talking about. That's the medial patellofemoral ligament.
Is that surprising?
It is very surprising. Most people with a traumatic dislocation will tear that. So it makes me wonder a little bit, is he an individual who has just kind of loose joints to begin with, and that may well be the case. Once that's happened and things are back in place, and if he doesn't have a torn ligament to fix, then they're going to rehab him like crazy. They're going to do a lot of things to balance the quadriceps muscle. Once that's balanced and the strength is back, that's when they'll let him return. You know, they're talking about 3 weeks. I think that's pushing the envelope a little bit. I would be surprised to see him come back that quickly. However, if this is not a first-time dislocation, I suppose that's possible.
Good stuff from the doc. You explained it way better than I could have explained it. Thank you so much, and appreciate the time. Have a good, safe game today.
I hope it's a good one. Thank you.
Back to you guys.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. Here is who is on the injury report today. We found out about Josh Hayes. He got injured in practice this week. We do not think that he is going to go today. Garrett Malmstrom is out with a knee injury, and then there's a couple more surprises that we were hit with this morning when we got to the Fargo Dome, and that's the one, Derek Tuska. We're not sure that he's going to go today. Officially listed as questionable with a leg.
Well, and it's important not to get too concerned with some of these injuries, questionable, doubtful, all of that terminology there on the Sanford Orthopedic Sports Medicine injury report, because this is a game where you take precautions. You're not going to risk having somebody out there. You're not going to want to put them in a compromising situation that might hinder them from the rest of the season. This is not the game where you need anyone.
Yeah, especially with South Dakota State and Youngstown State still on the docket. Better safe than
Get
sorry.
healthy, no tweaks, nothing. Just let things heal up.
Okay, let's take a look at the quarterbacks that'll be going today for both sides. And, oh boy, Trey Lance has been something else. And
so fun to watch.
Peyton Husling going for Missouri State. And we'll take a look at the numbers for these guys. But Trey Lance has been unbelievable. Here's a look at Husling's numbers. And, boy, hasn't been great. Hasn't been good this year. 10 touchdowns, 5 picks.
Oh, well, and it's really
run.
You know, it's kind of the chicken or the egg when it comes to Missouri State this year, I feel like. And they have a really tough time getting that run game going. They've been unable to do that. Their offense is out on the field a whole lot because the defense keeps giving up points. The line can't really compete. You know, it's kind of which one of these is hindering the other. He's a great story, a hardworking kid, and it's tough to see because you know he's getting beat up back there as well.
Good hair flow through the
I like the flow.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at the redshirt freshman. I cannot say this enough. Redshirt freshman quarterback for the Bison, Trey Lance, already over 1,000 passing yards. Completion percentage is there. 15 touchdowns to 0
He's checking
interceptions.
all of the boxes.
Yeah.
Literally checking every single box that you could possibly want and then some. He has so far exceeded my expectations. I was incredibly confident. I was excited to see Trey Lance on the field this year just from all of the conversations with coaches, players, alums, everyone you could think of. And he has just so far surpassed anything you could have imagined.
Pretty good start to his career. 6 starts in, and that's what he's done.
And we talked about this pregame. We just love the confidence that he has in every single one of his targets.
Receiver,
and that is so fun to see and outstanding to see out of a young guy, that he's not creating any of those crutches that that could potentially hinder him in the future, because you never know what's going to happen. He has been outstanding, just spreading it around, getting all those guys and building confidence in each of those players to know that they need to go out there and do their best on every single route, because it could very easily be coming to you.
All right, let's go down to the field and learn a little bit about this game of football that we all love. Kyle Emanuel and Ryan Gellner standing by. Guys, what do you got for us?
Yeah, it has been a big talking point this week since the Monday Night Football game, and that is the illegal hands to the face. Of course, a lot of people think the Green Bay Packers benefited from a couple of calls in that football game, but let's start there. Illegal hand from the face. You were upset because it's illegal for a defensive lineman to do it, but...
Yeah, Ryan, there's just a double standard to me. Running backs are able to stick the stiff arm. They can stick their hand in a defender's face, shove them to the ground, their necks get all torqued back, and it's completely fine. But when a defensive lineman it's hard enough to rush against a 330-pound freak of an athlete, when their hand gets placed and it slips up, they're called for penalty. And if you look at that penalty, the Packers offensive lineman had hands to the face on them, and it wasn't called. So, I know I'm biased because I'm a defensive guy, but it just doesn't seem like it's fair on both sides.
You played defensive line. both here at North Dakota State, a little hybrid position, but in the NFL as well. So you played in the league. Where should your hands be?
Yeah, let's talk about it. And let's talk about why, his hand, Trey Flowers, I believe, why his hand was where it is. All right, so if I'm coming on a pass rush, and this is something I love to do, the stab. I call it the stab. And you have to place your hand in a certain spot. Now, I got to finally put my hands on right. We've been talking about this for a lot of segments and a lot of weeks. So if I let's say I put my hand here, right? Now I'm not doing anything to you, all right? I have no leverage here. I'm not pushing you back, and I'm not getting, what you ultimately want to do is get those pads back. If I put my hand too low, you can chop it down, and I'm also not moving. So you want to get the hand right in that throw area, because now I'm pushing your pads back. I'm getting you raised up. I'm getting you raised up. And now you have no leverage. Now what you have to do is you have to try and sit down. So when you try and sit down, now I can flip my hips.
And I'm going.
Little stab slap. Loved that move. Credit to Jamar Kane for that one. I can pull it out, and I can turn it into a speed rush. You can leave it, and you can have a power rush. So there's a lot you can do it. So that's why you put your hand there. And now when you're saying that if this thing slides up just slightly, now that's a penalty. That's extremely hard to do.
Right, and when they're moving that fast, with your hand here on me, when they're moving that fast, I can see where it looks like hands to the face,
right.
But how hard is it keep your hand here as opposed to getting me in the face?
Once you start pass rushing, you're not really thinking about that hand necessarily. It's happening really fast, and it doesn't help when the offensive linemen are throwing their head back when they're really not getting the hands to the face. So it's extremely hard. You're throwing that stab in there, and you want it to land where we just showed you. But it's hard to do, and if it slips up a little bit, and in the NFL, it's even in the neck area. If you get your hand to the neck area, now it's a penalty. I don't even know how these guys are playing defense anymore. I guess that's why I'm standing here with you.
You act like that's a bad thing.
It's not. It's a great thing.
Real quickly, though, the offensive linemen, they're trained to do that move, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you saw in the package, Bakhtiari, he's throwing his head back, his hand is right in his chest plate, and he's throwing his head back. Offensive linemen, and they're grabbing. Defensive linemen are getting grabbed, everything like that. So it's tough to play defense, and the refs aren't helping them out.
Is what it is. You got to live with it, right? Play
Absolutely.
within the game. We're coming back with more from the pregame show. Lots to do. We'll do it as we look at that guy as we come back in just a little bit.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
All right, our fun in the tailgate continues, and we've got two more contestants who are ready to play Bison Tailgate Trivia, and I am going to start with you. Your name?
Darcy.
Darcy, where are you from?
Holly.
Holly. And Darcy, no one has gotten this wrong in the history of this particular competition. I hope that doesn't make you nervous. Here's our question. Trey Lance is NDSU's starting quarterback, correct?
Yes.
That's not the question, however. The question is, what number does he wear?
5.
I'm going to give you another answer. 5 or 21?
5.
5. Is she right? Of course she's right. It's 5. It's 5. Anybody happy about that? Yeah. These are your friends, aren't they?
I think so.
Okay, there you go. Congratulations. Okay, that's how easy it is. See how easy that is? All right. Your name?
Allie.
Allie?
Yes.
You heard the pressure. Nobody gets it wrong, right?
Right.
Okay. Who is the director of the athletic bands for North Dakota State University? Is it Seeger Johnson or Tommy Dorsey?
It's Seeger Johnson.
Seeger Johnson. Seeger, is she correct?
She's right.
She's right. It's Seeger Johnson. Congratulations. There's your... It's Seeger Johnson, and it's the band. Holy smokes. Let's break into song, everybody.
Wow. Wow. That's all I got to say. Welcome back, field side here, 25 minutes away from kickoff. Brian Sean and Lee Timmerman joining with me, and we break it down, get into the Dakota Magic keys to the football game. In this football game, we start off right at the top, and that is finish it. It's something that Coach talked about this week, and it was finishing tackles down the field. They thought, for some reason, they may have left points on the board last week because their downfield blocking wasn't as good as it could be.
you know, from us from the outside, and you see North Dakota State win one Valley game by 34 and win another by 32 and obliterate two pretty good teams. You have to find ways to keep your guys motivated and say we still should be doing better and doing more. And I think that's what this program has done so well over the years. Is we need to continue to get better and stress just the tiny little things, because down the road, who knows how many of these guys are going to have to play and contribute. You want everybody to make sure they're ready to go.
Our second key to the football game, and this one is supported by the numbers, and that is run it. Take a look at this. MSU, they rank 112th in rushing defense. Not very much better, in fact, worse in total defense, 120th. The Bison should be able to run the ball and, heck, do whatever else they want today.
Yeah, NDSU will add to its 1,211 rushing advantage already that they have over the teams that they played so far. And this is a Bears defense, too, that at times will really struggle in the run-fit department, maybe overrun a play, open up the gaps. The Bison should have a field day on the ground today.
Our third key to the football game, brought to you by Dakota Magic and Casino, is simply start it. And it's how hot the Bison have been starting. And they really have. 6 games, 6 opening drives, 6 touchdowns. Are you kidding me?
And I think that goes back to the scripting on the offensive side of the ball. Noah Pauley, Randy Hedberg, those guys have been offensive coordinators before. They've done a nice job of finding a mix of plays, variety of formations, variety of different schemes, and it has worked to perfection, keeping defenses off balanced.
Yeah, these defenses don't even know, you just can't really prepare for what they've been hit with and the variety of angles that these plays have come from. So, yeah, the script off the start of these games has been terrific, and coaches love it, too, because those are the plays that they get to predetermine.
A touchdown to start every single game on the opening drive. It's fantastic. When we come back, we talk to that head coach about how well the Bison are playing. We'll do that kickoff 20 minutes away here from the Fargo Dome. It is the 12th ever meeting between North Dakota State and Missouri State, with NDSU holding a 9-2 series lead, including the Bison winning 8 straight against the Bears. That leads off this week's Herdline News. Junior running back Adam Cofield is off to an explosive start. He had his first career 100-yard rushing game last week against Northern Iowa, finishing with 15 carries for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is the 4th Bison to go over 100 yards this season. Offensive lineman Carson Schoening was this week's Missouri Valley Offensive Lineman of the Week. He helped the Bison rush for 347 yards last week. The junior center from Rolla graded out at 98% against UNI. I had the chance to catch up with Bison head coach Matt Entz and asked him about Schoening and the awesome offensive line. At least it has been awesome this far for North Dakota State. We asked him about the offensive line heading into this week against Missouri State. Carson Schoening and that offensive line have been so good. Talk about Carson's play, the player of the week on the offensive line this week.
Well, he's first thing, he's had to play tremendous defensive linemen the last couple of weeks. You go back to Illinois State, UNI, and he's been matched up against 2 of the better defensive linemen in the league. And so for him to be able to, one, physically handle that, but also he's where all the communication starts and the center of the communication chain, as far as, you know, our where we're IDing things on a run game, where we're IDing on protections. And so he's played a critical role in the success of that group, and he continues to get better every week, and that's been the challenge for the entire team.
The offensive line has been so good, both running the ball, both passing the ball. You've been efficient. You've gained chunks of yards. Are you surprised at all where the offensive line is this point in the year?
You know, I'm not really. I thought I saw in fall camp an unbelievable amount of depth at that position. Guys that were really engaged in learning and becoming better, and guys who take great pride in what they put on film. And so I'm really pleased, but I think these guys can be really good up front. We have some difference makers when you start talking about Dylan and Cordell, and of course Zach Johnson, our lone senior up there, has done an unbelievable job, and Carson's coming into his own. But then you're seeing other names: Zach Kubas, Nash Jensen, other guys, Cody Mock, Jalen Sundell. I mean, when you start rattling off all those names, you're amazed at the depth that we have up there. So really pleased with how Coach Blazik has helped that room continue to improve.
You've started fast, scored points on every first drive this year, which is super impressive. You made that an emphasis this year.
Continue to make it an emphasis. We need to start fast. When we start fast on either side of the football, we're going to play at a high level. When we give opponents a glimmer of hope or think there's an opportunity that they can play with us, that's when we're going to be in for those critical games, those nip and tuck games. So, for us to be able to start fast, we want to put some doubt into our opponent every week.
Missouri State today, important for you guys to look past the numbers, look past the record, and just focus on the Bears.
Yeah, well, we've even gone another direction. We're focusing just on ourselves, and it's coming down to our execution, our effort, our energy. I believe that a team that executes well, plays with great energy, probably has a chance to win 90% of their games, and so that was my challenge to this group all week. Ignore the outside noise and make sure we just worry about ourselves and doing the right things between the snap and the whistle.
Good luck, Matt. We'll see you at halftime.
Yep, appreciate it.
Ignore the outside noise, something North Dakota State has been very good at this season. When we come back, it's upstairs to the booth. We'll talk to the guys that are going to call this football game. That and so much more as we get ready. 13 minutes from kickoff. The Bison and the Bears next.
Bison football pregame show. Brian Shawn, Lee Zimmerman, and Kyle Emanuel with you here up in the booth as we take a look at the Bobcats heavy lifting report. Kyle.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting week, I think, with Missouri State's offensive line kind of struggling, running and throwing the ball. I wanted to go with Derek Tuska, but we learned kind of late that he's not going to be in the game. So I went with his replacement, Spencer Wagee, and I think he's a talented young man. He's going to be on the field more with that Tuska injury. Missouri State has struggled running the ball, which means they're going to have to throw it obviously a lot more than maybe they want to. And I think the defensive line is going to have a really good day. I really think I could have picked the entire defensive line, but I think someone within that group is going to have a really good day, and I think Mr. Wagee might be the one.
There may be several people, LT, that have a good day on the defensive line because Missouri State has really struggled.
Yeah, and I think Kyle picking someone who's an edge rusher from his former position is a good one to do because the tackles have really struggled. They're not very athletic. It doesn't take long to work through much game tape on Missouri State and realize that they have issues up front offensively.
North Dakota State's offensive line the last 2 weeks ran for 288 yards against Illinois State, a team that was only allowing 85 yards a game. Northern Iowa had been very good against the run. The Bison ran for 347 against them. Now you're going up against a rush defense that is giving up a lot of yards. How bad could this get for the Bears today on the ground?
Yeah, I think it might be a struggle for them, and I think even beyond the offensive line, just the play calling from Tyler Rowland, their commitment against a really good run defense in Illinois State and Northern Iowa, they just continue to pound it. And hey, you might stop our A-gap run game, but you're not going to stop everything we have in our arsenal. There's so much diversity to this run game. Tyler Rowland does a really good job mixing it up, and then he picks and chooses when he needs to throw the ball. And now when you get sucked up, you got 8, 9 in the box and try and stop the run. Now it opens up the passing game for sure.
I thought one of the things I thought was most interesting that I heard came from Coach Steckel, Dave Steckel, and he just flat said, we are a three-quarter football team. When's the last time you've heard a coach be that honest about how bad during chunks of a game that his team is performing? We saw it last week against USD. That game went from 7-7 to 31-7, just like that. And obviously, you can't play a three-quarter game in this building today and hope to survive.
We got North Dakota State made playoff appearances now over the last decade. Missouri State has not made a playoff appearance since 1990. Been almost 3 decades since the Bears have been in the postseason. North Dakota State sporting the all-green jerseys, a code green game here today for the first time in history, and the Bison are getting set to take the field here at the Fargo Dome. Dakota State and Missouri State coming up in just a couple of moments. The Bears just one conference win in overtime at Western Illinois. The Bison looking to win the program's 28th straight game, second longest streak in FCS history. Ryan Shaw, Kyle Emanuel, and Lee Timmerman with you. Stay with us. Coming up out on the other side of this timeout, we have our final thoughts, your starting lineups, and your opening kickoff. That's coming up on the KBLY and KFYR Bison Television Network.
Welcome back to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. 1 minute 44 seconds on our Coors Light countdown clock. Let's get the final thoughts of our crew before this one, guys.
I think my final thought going into this game is to see how the secondary can do against Peyton Huesler today. I know Matt Entz said this week he'd like his team to get a few more interceptions. They have 39 pass breakups this season, led 49 all of last season, so maybe hang on to the ball a little bit more when they get their opportunities.
Well, Brian, I'm going to tackle the tackles. Not literally, because if I tried that, I would be destroyed. But Dylan Radens and Cordell Volson have been so good this year for NDSU. In pass protection, we never hear about a defensive end getting to Trey Lance. They've been real clean. On the outside, too, running the ball, they've been so solid that those three interior linemen can really take care of guys like Ridgway and Brinkman the last couple of weeks. I think that Bison offensive line is the reason NDSU's been so dominant this year. They should dominate today, and it'll have a lot to do with those tackles.
There are 127 teams in the FCS. Missouri State, they rank 112th against the run, and they rank 120th in total defense. I think particularly North Dakota State's offense, their running game, could blow up the scoreboard today. Kyle, you better make sure all the lights in that scoreboard are working this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ryan. I have to agree with you. I think the Bison will be lighting up the scoreboard today. But for me, what I want to see from this team is just competing against themselves and getting better. Gus Bradley taught me when it comes to competing, it's not about going against someone else. It's about competing against yourself. And that's really what I want to see from this Bison team. Can you feel good going into a big game next week against South Dakota State and leave this game with the exclamation point and really run away with it like you're supposed to?
Thanks so much, guys. Well, that'll do it for us here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. We'll see you at halftime. We toss it now up to the booth.